I think another definition of older, at least from the public sense as well, is when you're dealing with units where the standards have changed since the time that you banked them.
Some of our older clients are at this point over 20 years. And I spoke to one last year, and he just wanted to know, was his cord blood still good?
But if we are using the unit as a starting material to develop advanced therapies, then this unit maybe not require such kind of test.
We've been mentioning research, but our research partners want fresh units, not frozen.
So we have, as an industry, have to kind of come up with a way to aspire confidence in the transplant centers that these units that are banked long-term are still as viable as something that's being put in the freezer today.
Segment testing is one of those things that has been incredibly frustrating, and we've actually kind of trained the transplant centers to expect it. So at this point now, even though you've got stability studies that show that these units are fine, or should be, right, fair confidence that the units are okay to use, if you don't have that segment testing, there's a high likelihood that those units aren't going to be requested.
We have had situations in that laboratory where we have thawed vials, cryovials, to look at viability prior to a transplant, and the viability in the vial is not good. And then when they actually do the transplant, because they have no choice but to use that product, and they do viability on the actual bag, what's left in the bag at the end of the infusion, the viability is fine and the patient does fine.
It probably is worthwhile, especially for the public banks, to look at your inventory and to understand the redundance that you might have in your inventory. So we actually know how many units we have of the same haplotype. So for those smaller units, you can then disposition them differently. But for the larger units, then you might want to put in some extra effort to get them typed to a certain HLA resolution, to put more effort into testing and typing them.
There are units that would never have gone up for a transplant, but have used in cellular therapy for regenerative medicine in clinical trials from our own inventory by our clients. Their metrics would never meet transplant, but they met other things. So again, we don't know the full usability what will happen in 10 or 20 years.